define the way you build objects in a single location. And this is the consistency about that. And as we said, we can replace services from the framework with our own, which is really important in order to bend the rules, for example, or do our own implementation. Okay, so the last topic is events and event manager. It seems that it's going to be a bit more of the timeline, but I hope it's going to be okay for you. If you don't have beers, you can really hop on now and get yourself one. So the event manager, first of all, what is event? Event is a named action as it's defined in the Zend pages, but it's not providing that much information as that, right? So event is actually something that we can work with, and events occur. They are not persistent. We are not having them in database, for example. The events, they occur, and they occur at the moment. If user changes his state to confirmed for some reason, and somebody should be doing something when this user gets confirmed, then we need an event system to do that and manage that with really flexible solution. So the event is being a small class with parameters and ID. The ID is any string you want, usually the class name, or the name of the thing that has happened to the user, or to any class. That one. A listener, in that way, is somebody who is expecting this specific ID to happen and does something when this event is triggered. Sorry. And the event manager at that point is the one which combines these both. The event manager is registering listeners, and it's attaching events to a specific listener, actually attaching listener to specific event, and it's another part of its duties is to trigger the event itself and say this has just occurred, do something, or okay listeners, it's okay now, do your job. So Zend is built over the MVC event. The MVC event is really basic implementation of the event system. It's nothing more complex than the ones you are gonna be using in your applications. So it's really a nice example of how the things should be done with events and event manager. Zend, they have done a lot of good code to show you the best practice in using the event manager. So the event, the MVC event is available in all your modules and all your controllers and every place that you need to tweak your application. So it provides you a lot of information about the application, the request, and the response that is going to be prepared for the client, the end client. So it gives you the application instance, it gives you the request object, which is a Zend wrapper of the Apache request with common interfaces and good stuff inside. the MVC event is carrying around the response object, if there is such, at some point of the MVC running cycle. The MVC event does not have any response yet, and the application itself is listening for response, for result of this event, and when this response is available, then it is served to the client. So it's a bit complex at first point, but I'll show later. It's going to be cleared up, I hope. So the other point is providing you a router object and route match. If we don't have a route match, then it's 404 page, as I've mentioned. And if there is a route match, we can use the parameters from the route that we defined in the routing table. So we can do a check on that just after the routing event occurs. I'll show that later on. And as I said, if there is a result, we are heading to the controller, and if controller provides a result of the action after it's executed, we are keeping that in the MVC event and delivering that to the user at some point. It's very important that the MVC event is never stopped with die or exit, because not all events are going to be triggered. So in Zend, this is kind of bad to be using these things. Okay, so the MVC event and the MVC, the application loop actually consists of the following states, which are defined inside the MVC event itself, but are used all over the application. So the first event, which is triggered by the application, is when it starts, it has to bootstrap. And bootstrap means go provide the configuration of application.config.php that I've showed you earlier. Provide that configuration to the module manager. And module manager is looping all over the configuration and merging configs, and things happen because of this bootstrap event. So there is a module manager which is listening for the bootstrap event to occur and does all the job that it's supposed to do after that event. Then the next step is the routing. We have to know if this request should be matched and if this request should be delivered to the dashboard controller or statistics or whatever we need. And we are asking, actually the router itself has a route listener, and it's trying to match the request to a given end controller, which is supposed to do the dispatching. And dispatching is finding and executing this controller and this action in order to get a nice result, which we are going to show to the customer. If we are unable to dispatch, or we are triggering a dispatch exception inside the controller, this exception is handled by a different event, different part of MVC event. So it's different event which occurs, and the application then knows that it should be rendering the exception layout or 404 page layout or whatever. So the next part, if the dispatching goes okay, the next part is preparing the data and rendering that data in the view layer of the framework. So it's actually preparing the data is part of the dispatching and part of the controller's job. We are just preparing the data for the view render event. So it's a bit different. It's not doing stuff in the view like it was in the few years back, let's say. So the view layer can trigger its own exceptions and do its own rendering of these exceptions. And we are handling these exceptions almost the same way as we do with the dispatching exceptions or routing exceptions for that matter. So after we have prepared the view and we have inserted all the data that we want in the view, we are triggering the finish event, which is doing anything else that we want to do. For example, check memory usage, do caching of the page. So we are able to do a lot of things in between every of these different parts of the application. So we can plug ourselves. These are actually the event names, how they are defined as constants, class constants inside the MVC event. So we have the bootstrap, we have the root, we have the dispatch and dispatcher, render and renderer, and then we have the finish event. And inside a listener, we can plug ourselves inside, in between each of these events. So the event manager is triggering the events at priority 1. Priority 1 is the standard, and we can do a priority 100, and it will go before the routing is done. If we go for a priority minus 100, it's gonna go after the routing is done. So we can plug ourselves whatever we need to. So this is how we create a listener. We define in the attach method. We are again using interface from Zend. We are using the attach method, and we are defining which method of this class should be executed when this event occurs. And as I said, higher priority runs first, lower priority runs late. And this is running just after the routing is being done. But if no priority is set, or there are several definitions for the same priority, they're going to be executed in the way they are registered. So in every of these callbacks, we are receiving an object, and if we are looking for the event, MVC event, and we are attaching to it, then this object is going to be MVC event over here. And we can fetch different data from it. So it's complex, maybe only the first time that you use it. It's complex to define which are the events that you need to attach some callbacks to. And the hardest part about that is changing your mindset about event-driven architecture. It's not the same procedural flow that we are used to. So it's a bit different about that. And what's cool about these things you can exit the application or just after the routing, for example. If you need to redirect, if this route matches to a different place, you can do that before you hit a controller or anything else. So you can jump from the event route directly to event finish or event render, whatever. You can define your own way of handling the application flow, and it's really great to have it like that. So the other cool thing about that is every model can attach listeners to different parts of the application, to different modules, to anything, and Zend, of course. Zend events, I mean. So your logger module can log itself all the places that it's required to be logged. It does not require you to get the logger in every place. You just need to flag an event, and then the logger can do its job. And it's really nice to have something like that. For example, one of the features of Zend developer tools is that it profiles every callback inside your application. So it gives you performance information about every of these callbacks that we've made over here, and you can really easy track which of them is eating your memory. So it's a really nice feature to have as well. You can track your API calls, you can track your database calls, anything. Because Zend framework is built in a way that it provides this info for anything that listens for it. So, as we said, we can have many independent callbacks for the same event, and we can register it to different places. In my opinion, it looks and feels a bit like middlewares that we are about to use in the future more and more, I think. So it's created several years before the PSR 7, so it's kind of I think which led to the middleware way of thinking inside Zend. So that's the end, or the end of it, and I hope you like it. And now I think we have several minutes for questions, and we can continue over the networking to that. Okay.
Okay, so I have one question.
Okay.
When you talked about the service locator pattern, as far as I know, that this is an implementation of the inversion of control pattern, the service locator. And I was going to ask you if Zend provides a way to use dependency injection and dependency injection containers instead of service locator.
Yeah, it actually provides that, and it's quite a strong part of Zend, but it's rarely used in my opinion and in my experience. And I've seen that being used only in the examples of dependency injection.
Okay.
But there is a really big part of the application which is being done like that.
Yes. And I had also another question about the routes and the route mechanism. When you told us that the routes can be cached, so I have some experience in ASP.NET MVC, and I haven't come across the route caching there. As far as I know, there is a routing table in which every request looks in the routing table, finds the current match and dispatches the call to the action of a controller. So where does this caching come into play in Zend? Can you please explain?
Yeah, sure. I can explain it over this slide because this is the life cycle. And we can actually cache a route, a given route, just after the routing event occurs. So we cache, for example, in memcached, we are using memcached for that. We are caching the whole object which has matched with the parameters, and we are doing that as a plain object, plain
Yes.
in the meaning of JSON.
Yes.
We are storing that, and the next time that we get the same request, we are trying to find the cached we are trying to find the cached object, the cached row record before the routing occurs, and we skip all the merging and all the checking inside the routing table, which can be big, of course.
Yes.
And we are actually saving a lot of time by skipping the routing itself and providing the exact parameters for the route match object. So this is a way of handling that.
Yes. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
I have two questions. Can you easily set up two database sources, one for reading, one for writing? And can you set up the database layer to use the one source for reading and the second source for writing? And second question is, in Zend Framework 1, there are also events, and you can attach him before dispatch and after dispatch. Can you do this? Can you show us how to do this in Zend Framework?
Okay, on the first question, so we are at the configuration table, and we define a configuration for the database that we want to be read. Usually this is being done by SQL, MySQL or Postgre users, which are not allowed to write inside the database. They don't have write access. It's probably the best way of handling that, and to expect exception for impossible or permission denied for writing, which is provided. So we define a second array like that, and we call it the first one, for example, database read only, and the other one is database read and write, or write only. So we provide different username for each of these configurations.
You mean try the first source, and if exception is thrown, try the second source?
Not really. If there is a service which should be writing, we give it dependency to the write database adapter, and if this service should be reading only, we are using that with a different dependency. Let me show you over the factory. For example, you can define a factory for a service, and this service is going to be using read-only table, read-only database, and you can define a factory for the same service with different instance of the database adapter, and then you can have the best of both. And whenever you need the write-only, you just call it from the service locator, give me the write-only, read-only instance, and you get what you need. Okay? Any other questions?
In this context, there is probably a method in the models from which you can set the configuration they should be using for the database connection. In Laravel, for example, there is such method, which is located in the base abstract of the framework, and it is called set connection. And you can provide those database connection names, the alias array. This method, and he knows which configuration got too old, and you can use several different configurations for the database.
Yeah, the base one.
At the moment, I have such a situation in the application that we're working on.
Yeah, we're using that as well in our application. One adapter connects to MySQL, another adapter connects to Postgre with specific arguments, and we are using them both, and it works fine, and the queries are never lost, because there is the query mechanism is executed against a database adapter. So you need to provide a specific database adapter. It's not using the global scope of the global connection. It's using a specific one. So you know that you're sending that to Postgre or to MySQL, and it works.
A cheaper solution to this problem, I've heard about it, I have not used it personally, without involving for splitting the reading from the writing part, maybe to use a MySQL proxy, where it can be configured to automatically determine the type of the query.
I'm asking because you are aware this is Greece setup. Well, too. You already. Can you answer to my second question? Can you attach to pre-dispatch and post-dispatch events? And where is the Zend register?
There is no Zend registry.
I know.
Yeah, it's a practice that has been deprecated in Zend Framework 2 and in Zend Framework 3. I've seen that there are a lot of improvements of framework, the version 2 against version 3. It's really built with a nice mindset. So having the pre-dispatch and post-dispatch methods occurs over here, and can be defined with event dispatch. This is the method you're talking about, I think.
Yes.
This is before the controller, and we can define a method like that after the controller does its job, and you can attach some variables to all your controllers before they or after they provide the result object.
The name of the variable is the before controller and after controller.
No, it's actually a method which resides in this class. Well, I should get that D off, but yeah, it's probably the reason why it's getting confused. The presentation screen, the slide width was shorter than the method name, so that's why the D went off. So these are defined as PHP callback. So any callback is valid over here. You can define anything as long as it's a public method. The visibility matters because a different class executes that.
Thank you.
Okay. Other questions?
What about Zend Framework 3? What will be the main changes?
Well, I think a full presentation deserves that point. There are a lot of things broken or being done in an old-fashioned way. So they've rebuilt the service locator, they've rebuilt the event manager, and the main changes are on these parts. And they're really optimized. They're 4 to 15 times performance boost on these parts. and I'm expecting that as well. So it's gonna be great if we combine Zend Framework 3 with PHP 7, and it's a nice future to have. Okay. Anyone else?
No question, we have time.
Beer time. Let's do that.
Thank you once again.